Hello, this is the Blast Report podcast on all things blasting. My name is Evan Thibaud with 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Consulting, and I want to thank all the drill and blast teams along with those supporting them who are out there on the pattern. The production team at Blast Think and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the Blast Report podcast.
This episode of the Blast Report podcast is brought to you by the International Society of Explosives Engineers. For over 50 years, ISEE has been dedicated to enhancing the safety, science, skill, and benefits of explosives engineering worldwide. As the premier professional association in the field, ISEE connects a global network of blasters, drillers, researchers, and other explosives professionals, all working to move the industry forward. From online training and certificate programs to hands-on workshops and world-class networking opportunities, the Society is shaping the future of the explosives industry. Join us in Reno, Nevada for ISEE's 52nd Annual Conference on Explosives and Blasting Technique, January 20th to the 25th, 2026. Learn more and get involved at isee.org.
Well, good afternoon, Tom Thurman. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I could be better. Could be better. It's great weather down here in North Carolina. We haven't had too much rain. We'd like to have more rain. You could send more rain in the direction, but we're good. Thank you.
Well, it's nice and green where I'm at here in Chattanooga, and I want to thank you for coming on the Blast Report podcast here. And I know you've had an interesting, let's say, career development to get into explosives in the blasting industry that most of our listeners are in, and you kind of had a different path that you came in. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you kind of how did you first get into explosives? Was it what was the very first experience you had with explosives?
Well, probably a lot of people out there will appreciate this. I was 6 or 7 years old. It was fireworks.
Sounds about right.
Love fireworks. I kid you not. I grew up in southeastern Kentucky, in the foothills of the Appalachians, and I can't explain why, but explosives to me at that point were just so fascinating. And my dad, bless his heart, what a phenomenal soul. Yes, he would buy me fireworks, and they were illegal as they could be, but we knew where we could buy them.
That's right. That sounds Southern to me.
And now he didn't trust me, thankfully, with cherry bombs and M80s and that type of stuff. Just
which were around. There were M80s definitely around.
They were around, but the regular fireworks, when it went off in your hand, they would sting like crazy, but that was about it. And I'd get the fireworks, and with the kids that I played with, all the boys, we'd light them and throw them at each other, and I would use the fireworks by myself. That not too far from over the road from the house, there was this dirt bank. Kid you not on this thing. I would take my trucks. I would put the fireworks in the truck, and I would make roads, and I would go along the roads that I would made, and I'd go into the hillside, and I had a pencil, and I would poke holes into the hillside, put the fireworks in. Okay, I was a blaster at 6 or 7 years old.
That's the way to start.
And around town, every now and then they'd have a blasting operation, and man, I was there watching them drill. I'd watch them load the holes, and then I'd get back with the blasters, and they would shoot. I said, "Hey man, this is the coolest thing ever was." And then I would go up, and I'd start collecting all of the electrical wire, because it was all electrical detonators, and I'd start rolling up all the electrical wire. I'd have big rolls of wire, and just coolest stuff ever was.
So that's actually nice that you get a hold of your own electrical wire.
Oh yeah. So
and what was it that do you have any good things that you blew up? Any stuff that might have got you in trouble, considering what profession you went into years later?
the closest thing that I will admit to is taking cans of calcium carbide, punching a hole in it, and throwing it in the river.
There you
And
go.
people know what that does. And that was so
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, no lie, I never used dynamite to fish with. A lot of people did. I never did that.
I've used it in ponds, but that was doing testing. That wasn't really for fish retrieval.
Yeah, exactly. And
So,
you know, the progression from there, many years down the road. In 1969, I went into to the Army, and I thought that I was only going to be there for 2 years. I had graduated from Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond, Kentucky, which is just south of Lexington.
what did you study there?
Well, my study then was in political science, because I
Okay.
had a crazy idea that I wanted to be an attorney, and God forbid me of trying to think that way. But anyway, so I went in the military. I was an officer, and after about a year and a half in the military, and I had gotten to work overseas and in the U.S. With some EOD technicians, bomb disposal technicians. And I thought, here it is. Explosives and what they're doing is the coolest thing ever was. I threw this whole idea of being an attorney out in the street. That's it. And volunteered to go to EOD school, where they accepted me. And so I graduated from EOD school, Indian Head, Maryland, in December of 1971. And I got an EOD unit at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and became an EOD officer and started working with explosives. And just, it was absolutely phenomenal. And actually, when I was going to EOD school and working on the range and teaching how to do demolition and stuff, I knew this is the field that I guess started when I was 6 or 7 years old, but a much higher form of explosives at that point. And really, really enjoyed myself. But the military had other plans for me. In that they said, well, you have to go to the career course, and you go through this 6 months, a year training course, basically, education, so that you can qualify to be a field grade officer. I said, okay. Once I get out of there, I'll go back into EOD as in a higher level of supervisory or research and stuff. I said, oh, no. You're done with EOD. What do you mean? Well, that's not a career field in this period of time.
Really?
For an officer. It's different today. Not a career field. So I said, okay. So I started looking around for another job, and I considered many alternatives, certainly all federal. And I had, because I was at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., I knew and had worked with a number of people in the FBI laboratory explosives unit, predominantly the unit chief, Fred Smith. And so I called Fred and I said, how do I get in the Bureau? I made a decision. This is where I want to go. And
so how long had you been in EOD to the Army before you made that switch? Just 1 or 2 years?
Yeah, no, I was in, before I made the decision, I had been in about 3.5 years in EOD, and that was after school. Of course, I didn't go into EOD, into the FBI very quickly. It's a horrendous process of
Absolutely,
to qualify to get in there. Ultimately, I was accepted and went to EOD, or not to EOD, but to FBI Training Academy at Quantico. Started, and it's something all FBI personnel and agents will remember. Their reporting due date, October 17, 1977. And 16 weeks at the academy. And out of the academy, I was transferred from there to my first field office, which was Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was there for 3 years. I was the what they call the bombing coordinator of the Charlotte Field Division. And what a bombing coordinator is, no, you're not going out doing bombings, but people say, the bombing coordinator,
Right.
you're coordinating no. But any bombing investigations or things with explosives within federal jurisdiction that we had in North Carolina, then I was involved with it.
Okay.
Ultimately, because of my background in explosives in the military, I was transferred to the explosive unit in the FBI laboratory in Washington, D.C., and that was February of 1981.
Mhm.
And
So when you started out in the military, you were not deployed overseas. You were doing like let's say product disposal of expired products, or or what was your kind of your main field that you were doing that prepared you for the FBI? Was it you were looking at all of the shaped charges that the military was using and you were trying to disarm them without setting off the larger charge, or what was it that kind of got you qualified for the FBI?
okay, and that's a good question. Let's go back and look at each one of those. The mission of EOD in a military environment, regardless of what branch, is to render safe and dispose of military ordnance. And that's what the school was teaching us, to be able to identify a particular type of munition, whether it's a grenade, artillery, a bomb, a rocket, whatever. And then make an assessment of this munition, of in interviewing other people around, and this would be outside of a war zone. What do we need to do to this? That we've been called to look at this thing. How did it get here? In other words, we supported the range operations at AP Hill, Virginia, which is south of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And every now and then we would go down there. But the idea is that we were to handle, take care, destroy, render safe military munitions, regardless of the size or anything. And that's what we did at AP Hill. And along with that, it's exactly what you said, of destroying surplus or outdated munitions. And we did a lot of destruction missions down there of munitions, primarily raw explosives and research explosives that had come from research facilities around the Washington, D.C. area for the Department of Defense. At that time, when they got finished with the contract, if they had explosives left over, then they would call the Department of Defense. Okay, we've got this, we need to get rid of it. So then they would call us, and we'd go pick it up and take it to AP Hill and get rid of it.
Okay.
Now that was a minor mission for what we were doing. And that was the required mission. Well, during that period of time, which is still today, because of a military regulation with the federal government, specifically the United States Secret Service, the military EOD provides support to the Secret Service for VIP protection, specifically president, vice president, heads of foreign nations that would come in. With our proximity to Washington, we were designated as a presidential support unit, which we extra level of clearance on top of our top secret clearances and all the other stuff that we had. So most of my work had to do with going to Washington or in the area around Washington in a coat and tie, and work with the Secret Service in searching venues to ensure that there were no explosive devices there before the principal, whoever that principal may be, arrived. And then we would stay with the Secret Service in case there were bomb threats or anything like that, to go out and look at things, and if need be, have the principal removed from the area, and then call in another bomb squad to actually render something safe. We weren't there to render something safe. We were there to identify that it was a hazard and then move with the Secret Service, with the protectee, and then call in their bomb squad that had the equipment, because we wouldn't bring equipment with us. And there's a lot of equipment that can be brought to bear on something like that.
Sure is,
So,
yeah.
that was our main mission. And there were 2 other units in the DC area that did the same thing, one at McNair, the other one at Fort Meade. So there were 3 units in that area. The other thing that the 3 units did, including mine, was render safe homemade bombs. At that time, the FBI had started the Hazardous Devices School at Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, to train civilian bomb technicians in how to render safe homemade bombs. And still, it was in infancy. There were more and more of the bomb technicians that were coming online, but we were taking up a lot of the slack of render safe procedures, and that's what we did. We had a few of those, not a lot, but we had a few of those while I was there, rendering safe homemade bombs. The other thing that we did while I was there, because we were presidential support, we traveled overseas with the Secret Service for presidential protection, and so it was a phenomenal time in EOD for what we were doing, because we had a multitude of, as you see, responsibilities. And then because of that, working with Secret Service, working with the FBI, working with ATF, working with the Virginia State Police, we worked with all of them, U.S. Marshal Service in explosives. And I've gone out on some major searches down in Virginia with the FBI that we would go into they looking for explosives, and I would go in first through a window or something like that of a house where they had the search warrant to make sure there were no booby traps or anything like that in there. And then the agents that were doing the searches would come in, and I would go with them through the searches, and I would find, and I found explosives, and then I tell them, okay, this is okay to handle, this is not okay to handle, this is, we were there for safety at that point.
So, like homemade explosives that were not quite triggered yet, like to be as in a booby trap, or they were in the manufacturing process of the device itself that they planned on using. Let's say
exactly, right? But back then there was very little homemade explosives that was out there, with the exception of ANFO, ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. The improvised explosives that we have now, TATP, HMTD, and the whole litany of improvised explosives, we never saw that. So I remember this one search that we went in. It was primarily smokeless powder, what people call gunpowder, that you use in shot shells and rifle ammunition and that type of thing. They had a lot of that, and I can't remember what else they had, but they had a lot of stuff. And so I was glad to
before the internet really took off. Is this kind of
there was no internet.
The anarchist cookbook went famous.
Exactly, anarchist.
That really, yeah.
Then to recall a day, I got a call from Fairfax County Police, or maybe it's Arlington Police. Said, we think that we have found some electric detonators in the ground. Could you come over and check this out and see? Absolutely. So one of my sergeants and I got in the truck, and we went over to the location, and the location was a fairly small dam that had been built, and with a little bit of a water containment behind it. And it was a nice, kind of in between a pond and a lake as far as the size. And sticking out of the ground, no kid, was an electric detonator. And so I started digging. Both of us started digging around, being very, very careful with these.
All you saw were the 2 lead wires.
No, it was an actual shell of a detonator sticking out of the ground.
Wow.
And that's why the police had called us, because they recognized that it was a detonator. So I started digging around the ground very carefully, and we dug and dug and dug, and it's too long ago, but I remember digging up a lot of detonators that had been buried in the ground.
Oh, some company thought their best idea was just bury it and be done with
That's
it.
what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. But here's the point I want to make. Not far from there was a kid's playground.
Oh, wow.
And I could see where kids had been playing in this area. And I told myself that day, that's why I went to EOD. Hopefully we saved, and the police officer who found them saved kids' eyes. Maybe, you know, no telling what could have happened if those detonators had detonated with kids around. And so I said all of the study, and it was a tough course. 6 months of EOD school, it was all worth it today. All today.
Wow. So you, and it was, did they find out if it was pretty close to a, was it a previous blasting company or a mine site or a quarry that had excess? Is that kind of what it was? Was there any sort of evidence that you can recall?
No idea at all. Yeah, we took all the detonators, the explosives, back and destroyed them, and never heard again what it came of it.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a bit of history of people, you know, burying product to try to get rid of it. And, you know, nowadays everyone does their own product demolition. That doesn't involve burying, right? But that's an interesting story, and that's good that was the moment that you felt your calling.
Yes.
Like that's, you know, that's a good moment to know that what you're doing is helping the public and helping, you know, not just politicians and the military, but you're also helping the general public. Now, this is how you created such a network inside of Secret Service, the FBI, field marshals. I mean, this was all before you decided to switch to the FBI?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's why you were able to make the calls. Now, what made you choose and want to reach out to the FBI other than the other organizations that you mentioned, like, let's say, local police or, well, I guess local police would, yeah, I guess you could be a bomb squad for the local police. Yep. But what made you reach out to the FBI more than U.S. Marshals and all the other different divisions that you could have potentially used your, you know, knowledge on?
Well, it's a very simple question or answer, actually. Because of my work with the Secret Service, the FBI, ATL, these people, I knew what they did. I knew their jurisdiction. I knew what they were doing in their investigations. In other words, for what I wanted to do in the FBI, whether it was explosives or just being a criminal investigator, I knew what they did, or at least I thought I did. It certainly expanded once I got there, and I figured this is where I want to go. They've got more of a jurisdiction. They've got more responsibility. It's across the country. They're doing things overseas. It's much more ranging than what I believed at that time, the ATF, Marshal Service, and okay, but let's go to Secret Service. Because of my interaction with so many people in the Secret Service, they tried their best to get me to leave the military and go to work for the Secret Service, and to go to agents class and everything. And I said, well, I'd love to. I know the Secret Service pretty well because I've worked with them, you know, almost for 5 years. And I said, I go in the Secret Service. What would be my pay grade? Oh, we'd hire you at a GS5 or GS6 to begin with, or maybe a 7. I don't think so. I starved to death. I was married. I had a mortgage. I had a little girl. I said, I don't think so, guys. I said, well, no, you'd work. I mean, a big person. I said, yeah, but I'm not doing that to my family. Maybe, you know, after a year we could get you to a 9, but we don't know. I said, no, there's no way. There's no way. As compared to a GS10 with the FBI, plus once you got out of the training academy, what they called a mandatory overtime pay, which is at that point 20% of a GS-10 salary, so I got GS-10 plus 20% on top of that. I don't think I'm going to Secret Service.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay, I don't blame you of that at all. And I guess you get a pension in either one, right? That wasn't the problem.
No. Hey, as a 20-some-year-old,
You're not thinking.
That was the.
Yeah, that's the last thing. Well, right now, I guess I'm a little older than 20s, but looking at some gentlemen who retired, early and got their pension, and now they've just got they've got this other gig, the second career they can start and
Yeah.
morph into is quite a nice opportunity. So, okay, so what were some of the situations, like you were not the person who was actually coming in and doing the disarming of the IEDs, in Washington, D.C., but you were out searching for them. You were working with teams. You were working with animals to find these. What was another interesting project that you might have had in those early days that, like, looking back with technology is so much different or something like that?
Well, back then, the only technology we had was an X-ray machine. And the X-ray machine was not very good. And it took a long, long time before that changed. Our disruptors to explosively open up various packages and things changed over the years to be much better, much faster. And so that's a whole different mindset here. But technology, that was it, was X-ray. There was no such thing as a computer back then. And that was it. And I just can't say enough how the X-rays were just horrible. They were just horrible. And so we were going by the seat of our pants back then. As so different from today, so very different today, and the bomb technicians today, literally, I am so proud of them, of the level of training that they're going through, the level of technology, the safety that they go through, that we didn't have a choice back then of literally walking up on a possible bomb or real bomb, walking up on it. Today, they don't have to do that. They have a robot with a camera. Robot in, if it can access it and look at it. And at the same time, you can, with the robot, bring up an X-ray machine to X-ray. You don't have to go up to the device anymore. And there's times when EOD technicians, and it's changed in the past, have walked up on the bombs, and the bomber is waiting for that at radio control, and walk up on the bomb, initiate the bomb, kills the bomb technician.
Right.
That's happened a lot in the past. Recently, I know of none. So that the whole aspect of the procedures, the bomb disposal procedures, how you do this, how you work with it, has totally changed. One for the better. There is a huge research and development arm out there. Many organizations within the Department of Defense, within the FBI, that research render safe and technology and how you can best render safe something to spare other people's lives. I keep saying over and over, but it is a different animal today. And
Absolutely.
The threat has changed. The threat is totally different today than it was 40 years ago.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blast Report podcast. I want to thank the team at Blast Think for producing this show, and please follow along for more episodes in the future, and share this podcast with your colleagues so we can continue to honor our industry and the people in it. Be safe and have a blast.